Okay, so I'm doing chapter 40. It's basic principles of animal forms and function. First, we're talking about anatomy is the study of biological form of an organism. Physiology is a study of a biological function of an organism's that an organism performs. The comparative study of animals reveals that form and function are closely correlated. Size and shape affects the way animals interacts with its environment. Many different animal body plans have evolved and are determined by the genome. Physical laws constrain strength, diffusion, movement, and heat exchange. As animals increase in size, their skeletons must be proportionately larger to support their mass. Evolutionary convergence reflects different species' adaptations to similar environmental changes, which would be like the sugar glider and the flying squirrel and stuff like that. Or, in their example, they have a seal and a penguin and a tuna. A seal being, is that a mammal? I think it is. And then a penguin is a bird, and then tuna is a fish. They all can swim and survive underwater, and yet they're all different things. Materials such as nutrients, waste products, and gases must be exchanged across the cell's membranes of animals. Rate of exchange is proportional to the cell's surface area, while amount of exchange material is proportional to the cell's volume. A single-cell protist living in water has a sufficient surface area of plasma membrane to service its entire volume of cytoplasm. Multicellular organisms with a sac-like body plan have body walls that are only 2 cells thick, facilitating diffusion of materials. And here's an example of that. In flat animals such as tapeworms, the distance between cells and their environment is minimized. More complex organisms have a highly folded internal surfaces for exchanging materials, which makes us not flat. And here is a picture of all that pretty stuff. In invertebrates, the space between cells is filled with interstitial fluid, which allows movement of materials into and out of the cells. A complex body plan helps an animal living in a variable environment to maintain a relatively stable internal environment. Most animals are composed of specialized cells organized into tissues that have different functions. Tissues make up organs, which together make up an organ system. Some organs, such as pancreas, belong to more than one organ system. And then here's just a little bit of a breakdown and then what they do. Exploring structure and function in animal tissue. Different tissues have different structures that are suited for their functions. Tissues are classified in 4 main categories. Epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous. Epithelial tissue covers the outside of the body and lines the organs and cavities within the body. It contains cells that are closely joined. The shape of epithelial cells may be cubital, okay, dice shape, like a dice. Columnar, like columnar, like bricks on the end, or squamous, like floor tiles. Squamous. The arrangement of the epithelial cells may be simple single-cell layers, stratified multi-tier of cells, or pseudo-stratified, a single layer of cells of varying length. And here shows different shapes and types of those tissues throughout a wolf's body. Here's a closer look at it. Connective tissue mainly binds and supports other tissue. It contains sparsely packed cells scattered throughout an extracellular matrix. The matrix consists of fibers in liquid, jelly-like, or solid foundation. There are 3 types of connective tissue fibers, all made of protein. Collagenous fiber provides strength and flexibility. Elastic fibers stretch and snap back to their original length. And rectilinear fibers join connective tissues to adjacent tissues. Connective tissues contain cells including fibroblasts that secrete a protein of extracellular fibers, and macrophages that are involved in immune system. And in vertebrates, the fibers and foundation combine to form 6 major types of connective tissue. Loose connective tissues binds epithelia to underlying tissues and holds organs in place. Cartilage is strong and flexible support material. Fibrous connective tissue is found in tendons, which attach muscles to bones, and ligaments, which connects bones to joints. Adipose tissues? Adipose tissues store fat for insulation and fuel. Blood is composed of blood cells and cell fragments in blood plasma. Bone is mineralized and forms a skeleton. And then they show you all 6 of those in different spots. That's not a very pretty picture. And then, again, they're going to show you them up closer, a little bit higher. Muscle tissues consist of a long cell called muscle fibers, which contract in response to the nerve signals. It is divided in the vertebrate body into 3 types. We have skeletal muscles, or striated muscles is responsible for the voluntary movement. Smooth muscle is responsible for involuntary body action, and cardiac muscle is responsible for contraction of the heart. And again, we're going to show all those different types of muscles on a wolf. Nervous tissue senses stimuli and transmits signals throughout the animal. Nervous tissue contains neurons, or nerve cells, that transmit nerve impulses. Glial, or glia, that help nourish, insulate, and replenish neurons. And again, there's pictures showing the 2 different types. And then they also show the axon, cell body, and dendrites and stuff like that. And here's a larger picture of that. Control and coordination within the body depends on the endocrine system and the nervous system. The endocrine system transmits chemical signals called hormones to receptive cells throughout the body via blood. A hormone may affect one or more regions throughout the body. Hormones are relatively slow-acting, but have a long-lasting effect. And this is just showing how that works. Something gets signaled by a hormone, and it sends a signal out through the nervous system. The nervous system transmits information between specific locations. The information conveyed depends on the signal's pathway, not the type of signal. Nerve signal transmission is very fast. Nerve impulses can be received by neuron muscle cells, endocrine cells, and exocrine cells. Animals manage their internal environment by regulating or conforming to the external environment. A regulator uses internal control mechanisms to moderate internal changes in the face of external environmental fluctuations. A conformer allows its internal conditions to vary within certain external changes. Animals may regulate some environmental variables within while conforming to others. And here's a graph showing you how a fish and an otter differ. Homeostasis. Organisms using homeostasis to maintain a steady state or internal balance regardless of external environment. In humans, body temperature, blood pH, and glucose concentrations are each maintained at a certain constant level. Mechanisms of homeostasis moderates changes in the internal environment. For a given variable, fluctuations above or below a set point serves as a stimulus. These are detected by a sensor and trigger a response. The response returns the variable to the set point. The dynamic equilibrium of homeostasis is maintained by negative feedback, which helps to return a variable to a normal range. Most homeostasis control systems function by negative feedback, where a buildup of the end product shuts the system off. Positive feedback amplifies a stimulus and does not usually contribute to homeostasis in animals. Set points or normal ranges can change within an age or show variation. In animals and plants, the circadian rhythm governs physiological changes that occur roughly every 24 hours. And here is a graph showing the circadian rhythm. Oops. Okay. Homeostasis can adjust to change in external environments, a process called acclimatization. Okay. Thermoregulation is the process by which animals maintain an internal temperature within a tolerable range. Endothermic animals generate heat by metabolism. Birds and mammals are endotherms. Ectothermic animals gain heat from external sources. Ectotherms include most invertebrates, fishes, amphibians, and non-avian reptiles. In general, ectotherms tolerate greater variation in internal temperatures, while exotherms are active at a greater range of external temperatures. Endothermy is more energetically expensive than ectothermy. And here they show a picture of a walrus who's an endotherm and lizard, which is an ectotherm. The body temperature of a poikilotherm, is that what you said? Poikilotherm varies with its environment. The body temperature of a hemiotherm is relatively constant. The relationship between heat source and body temperature is not fixed. That is, not all that are ectotherms. Heliotherms, yeah. Organisms exchange heat by 4 physical processes: radiation, evaporation, convection, and conduction. Here's a picture of all those. Conduction is where they absorb the heat. Convection is where it blows on you? I have no idea. Evaporation is where you sweat, and radiation is where the sun would heat you up. Heat regulation in mammals often involves Integumentary system? Integumentary system. Skin, hair, nails. 5 adaptations help animals thermoregulate. Insulation, circulatory adaptations, cooling by evaporative heat loss, behavioral responses, and adjusting metabolic heat production. Insulation is a major thermoregulator adaptation in mammals and birds. Skin, feathers, fur, blubber reduces heat flow between an animal and its environment. Insulation is especially important in marine mammals such as whales and walruses. Regulation of blood flow near the body surface significantly affects the thermoregulation. Many endotherms and some ectotherms can alter the amount of blood flow between the body core and the skin. In vasodilation, blood flows in the skin increases, facilitating heat loss. And vasoconstriction, blood flow in the skin decreases, lowering the heat loss. The arrangement of blood vessels in many marine mammals and birds allows for counter-current exchange. Counter-current heat exchange transfers heat between fluid flowing in opposite directions and reducing heat loss. Here's an example of that for like the duck's or goose's feet or the dolphin's flipper thingy. The heat's being spread out because of the blood flow, so that's what's keeping the rest of it not freezing and stuff like that and warm. Some bony fish and sharks also use countercurrent heat exchange. Many endothermic insects have countercurrent heat exchange that helps maintain a high temperature in the thorax. Many types of animals lose heat through evaporation from water from their skin. Panting increases their cooling effect in birds and many mammals. Sweating or bathing moistens the skin and helps to cool an animal down. Both endotherms and ectotherms use behavioral responses to control body temperature. Some terrestrial invertebrates have postures that minimize or maximize absorption of solar heat, like this bug right here. Thermogenesis is the adjustment of metabolic heat production to maintain body temperature. Thermogenesis is increased by muscle activity and such as moving or shivering. Non-shivering thermogenesis takes place when hormones cause mitochondria to increase their metabolic activity. Some ectotherms can also shiver to increase body temperature. And then here's a graph of that. Birds and mammals can vary in their insulation to acclimatize to seasonal temperature changes. When temperatures are sub-zero, some ectotherms produce antifreeze compounds to prevent ice from forming in their cells. Thermoregulation is controlled by a region of the brain called the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus triggers heat loss or heat-generating mechanisms. Fever is a result of a change to the set point for a biological thermostat. And this is just showing how the brain controls that. I'm just showing it in homeostasis. All right. Bioenergetics is the overall flow and transformation of energy in an animal. It determines how much food an animal needs, and it relates to the animal's size, activity, and environment. Animals harvest chemical energy from food. Energy contains molecules from food are usually used to make ATP, which powers cellular work. After the needs of staying alive are met, remaining food molecules can be used in biosynthesis. Biosynthesis includes body growth and repair, synthesis of storage materials such as fat, and production of gametes. And then this is just showing you how cellular works. Metabolic rate is the amount of energy an animal uses in a unit of time. Metabolic rate can be determined by an animal's heat loss and the amount of oxygen consumed or carbon dioxide produced. And this is just them showing how they're measuring that in a shark, which would be pretty cool. Minimum metabolic rate and thermal regulation. Basal metabolic rate, or BMR, is the metabolic rate of an endotherm at rest or at a comfortable temperature. Standard metabolic rate, or SMR, is a metabolic rate of an ectotherm at rest or at rest at a specific temperature. Both rates assume a non-growing, fasting, and non-stressed animal. So pretty much the animal can't be doing crap. Ectotherms have much lower metabolic rates than endotherms of comparable size. And that just goes back to saying that ectotherms use less energy than endotherms. Metabolic rates are affected by many factors besides whether an animal is endothermic or ectothermic. Two of these factors are size and activity. Metabolic rate is proportional to the body mass to the power of 3/4. So mass raised to 3/4. Small animals have a higher metabolic rate per gram than larger animals. A higher metabolic rate of smaller animals leads to higher oxygen delivery rate, breathing rate, heart rate, greater blood volume, and compared with large animals. And here's a chart showing those in different animals. Activity greatly affects the metabolic rate for endotherms and ectotherms. In general, the maximum metabolic rate of an animal can be sustained is inversely related to the duration of the activity. Different species use energy and materials and food in different ways depending on their environments. Use of energy is partitioned to BMR or SMR activity, thermoregulation, growth, and reproduction. And here is a pie chart showing what they're allocating all that to in different animals. Torpor is a physiological state which activity is low and metabolism decreases. Torpor enables animals to save energy while avoiding difficult and dangerous conditions. Hibernation is a long-term torpor that is an adaptation to winter, cold, and food scarcity. Summer torpors, called estivations, enables animals to survive long periods of high temperatures and scarce water. Daily torpor is exhibited by many small mammals and birds and seems adapted to feeding patterns. And then this is just a graph of homeostasis. And then this is just a everyday version of homeostasis. That's all this one has. Questions? That was a lot of information. Gotta have some questions. Though a lot of it was like, what do you call it?